Welcome to the Wall to Wall podcast, brought to you by Wall Ed Tech, where your hosts Jared and Kari Wall's passion for technology and learning come together to bring you up-to-date information on what's going on in and out of the classroom. From the latest apps and best practices to current trends, this podcast is Wall to Wall Ed Tech. Welcome to our June 18th edition of Wall to Wall podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Kari Wall.
Hello, hello.
And we are ready to bring you an episode on why teachers need to embrace failing in their own classroom in order to show students that failing is a valuable teacher. So in this episode, when we get to the content section, we're going to talk about the many ways we have failed using educational technology, among other things, and how those failures have led us to our greatest successes in the classroom. Before we get to the content of today's program, we're going to start with our news and notes. And this week's news and notes brings us to our experiences at a conference we went to this week in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And it is the LeCue Teacher Leaders Summit. And so LeCue, for those of you who aren't aware, stands for Louisiana Computer Using Educators. It is an association that we belong to of computer using educators in Louisiana. And they held a leadership summit in Baton Rouge over the last 3 or 4 days. And we were privileged enough to go to that conference. We learned a lot there. I want to give a special shout out to the West Baton Rouge Parish Technology team, who had a big hand in helping with put that conference together, Dr. Tammy Seneca. And we worked in West Baton Rouge for a few years with Dr. Seneca, and we feel that their technology team in West Baton Rouge is the best technology team in the state, and we don't say that lightly. James, who I call the wizard, he's kind of like the Wizard of Oz for West Baton Rouge.
Absolutely. Everything
that happens technology-wise behind the scenes and just works. It works because he keeps things working, and we had a good time learning about different things. I think the main theme of the conference that we took from it came from the opening keynote speaker, who talked about the fact that technology cannot be the main focus for teachers, right. That good teaching has to be the main focus, pedagogy, how and what we teach. Good teaching doesn't change. Technology is just a tool that helps us achieve learning in the classroom. And so we learned a lot about making sure we don't make technology the most important thing, that good teaching is the most important thing. And the main speaker wrote a book called Bold School. You want to talk about what that means?
Right. And it was talking about how basically like blended learning, and he takes blended learning and old school and made bold school. And, like you say, pedagogy comes first, and your outcomes, that should always be the focus. It's not about, I just learned about this tool, how can I use it? You need to focus on those outcomes. That may not be the tool to use. And, I run a completely paperless classroom, but depending on your content, there are times when you may still have to use a piece of paper for something. So I had a lot of takeaway. It was really, really nice.
If I could push one thing for educators from this, if you're listening to the podcast, I hope you take a couple of notes and feel free to use paper. It was the fact that you should start with outcomes. Any discussion of using technology in your classroom should begin with the best practice of backwards design. And that is, you should decide what your outcome is for the lesson or the unit you're teaching. That has nothing to do with technology. It has everything to do with best teaching practices, standards you need to teach. What is your outcome? After you look at your outcomes, then you want to look at what strategies you're going to use in the classroom. Those learning strategies, if you don't know them, you need to look them up. You need to start learning those strategies that you can use that help students to learn in your classroom. And then once you've got your outcomes and your strategies outlined, then you can turn to the tools you're going to use. You should never plan by saying, how can I use Nearpod today? You should plan for what outcomes you need students to achieve. What evidence are you going to use to prove they've met those outcomes? And then decide what tech tools help you to achieve those goals. So that was the big takeaway for me from this conference. And also that If you don't plan for it, you'll never use it. So when you're making your plans, you add those tools in where they're appropriate, and then you will have a good start at using technology in your classroom.
You've got to always ensure that it's relevant and with the rigor. I mean, that's a
rigor and relevance. We learned about that as well.
So. Yeah, it was a really good conference. That was just one of the conferences. We went to another one about Chromebook rollouts, and I mean we've learned a lot this week.
Yes, we have, and thanks to our friends at Lightspeed, we learned about Lightspeed Relay, which we hope our district will purchase, which is a filtering and monitoring software package you can get to use with Windows, Mac OS, and Chrome. So thanks to Lightspeed for their demonstration, and Amplified IT, who taught us a lot about how to manage the Google Chrome dashboard, how to be an admin functions in Google Chrome. And so we really appreciated what we learned at that conference as well. And that one was hosted by West Baton Rouge Parish. So again, hat tip to West Baton Rouge Parish Technology.
All right, so let's talk about some technology tools and trends. Google Keep. Now, I started actually on Twitter. This has been quite some time back. I started seeing hashtags about Google Keep, and finally led to, well, let me just see what this is about. So I started looking into it, and it started off with something simple as sharing a grocery list, and has then, as I kept playing with it, I realized, man, this tool has so much potential. And so I feel like we've used Google Keep more this week than ever before. But I said a grocery list. Google Keep allows you to take notes, and you have checkbox for listing items or tasks and things like that, which is where the grocery list comes in. You're able to add collaborators to a Google Keep just like you are able to do anything else in Google. And so I can share that grocery list or share that to-do list, task list with a PLC group, with your team, things like that. You can change the colors of this stuff. You can pin a note and it keeps it at the very top so that it's there for quick reference. Also, everything that you put in a Google Keep note can also be copied to a Google Doc, so you don't lose any of that. People still use business cards, and it's a quick, here you go, hand this to somebody. We were able to just take a picture of the cards that people gave us, business cards, and we were able to add that as an image on the Google Keep notes as well. So it allowed us to see quickly and to keep the resources that we received without packing them around. You can also add drawings. You can archive your notes. You can label your notes. You can remove yourself from a note. So if someone shared something with you, it is no longer relevant, or you have no idea why they shared it with you in the first place. You can take yourself off so you don't see all that. But
my favorite part of Google Keep, as a longtime day planner user, it's allowed me to go more digital with my to-do list, because I can add a reminder function to the Google Keep note, and the reminder function will add a link to my Google Calendar. So I can start my day looking at the Google Calendar, click on the link in the reminder to check my daily task list, and it pulls up my daily task list in Keep. And you can use the checkbox feature. Instead of just notes, you can have checkboxes. And when I do a task, I can check it off and it drops it to the completed section. So it's really becoming more of a digital planner item for me as well.
Yeah, it has lots of uses. That was our tech tool. Our trend that we want to talk about a little bit is about memes and using them in the classroom. This is something we see all the time. I actually have some people have full conversations where they just reply back and forth in memes.
For those of you who don't know what a meme is,
go ahead.
A meme is one of those pictures you may see on the internet, like the most interesting man in the world's picture is on it, and it'll say something like, I don't always use technology in the classroom, but when I do, all I do is technology and the kids learn nothing. Okay, so you'll see a meme will have some sort of an image that's really familiar to people, and then they will post something funny that relates to it in words over that picture. Right,
the text. And it's usually sarcastic or funny. And so thank you for clearing that up. This has this has become such a way that people are able to communicate. And, most of the time we look at these and some of them are hilarious, but I started using them in the classroom. And one of the things that I've used them for is to kind of bring things in perspective for my students. When we have, my students work for certifications, like national certifications. And whenever they do, it's very stressful for them. And when we're taking a practice test, I want them to know, hey, you've got this. So, I have like this crazy little squirrel that looks all spazzed out and he's got his arms up and it says, hold everything, you can do this. Or, just to kind of bring things in perspective for them, to give them that little bit of reassurance. And I've asked my students toward the end of the year, and I the only regret that I had with this is I wish I had done this sooner. But toward the end of the year, I had my students create a meme that was relevant to our class. The stuff that they came up with was hilarious. They had so much fun with this. I enjoyed every time one was new that was posted. I was ready for it, and I clicked and I kept refreshing my page. And so I could see, because they came up with really great things that had never crossed my mind before. And they're too funny. And it was all about things that happened in my class. Maybe not that day, but overall, and some were very specific, some were kind of generic. But, kids think ways that we don't even think about. But it was really funny, and it gave them the tech tool. It was something fun for them. It was at the very end of the year, and it was about our classroom and our content. So I saved them, of course.
Can I ask you a question about this? What tools did you have your students use to create a meme?
I told them that some of them made it in Google Drawings, and then they saved it as like a PDF or like a JPEG. I told them, let's find some meme makers. So they Googled meme makers, and off the top of my head, honestly, I can't think of, but when they Googled them, there were several, and they all were using something different. It let them save it.
So it wasn't difficult for your students to
do? No, I just told them, hey, do this. And within a couple of minutes, they started rolling in, and then, can I make another one? Yes, make another one. And so, of course, like I said, I saved them so I can show my students next year to start the year off with. But awesome. My only regret was I wish I had done it sooner, because it was really fun.
And I saw some of these memes, and they were spot on.
Yes.
And they really do reveal in an image with very few words exactly what those students went through for the year. So if you haven't used memes in your classroom, use them for you. If you can come up with a meme to help express what's happening in class for that day, it really helps the students remember and connect. Or if you get them to generate memes for you, you can have a good time and see what students are thinking about and what they've learned in your class. We're going to move on from news, notes, trends, and tools to our content for this podcast, which is failure as a means of learning. And I know that this is a topic of passion for Kari. We have, of course, in our technology, just teaching in general, but especially teaching with technology, we have learned that we fail more often than we succeed when we first start using a technology tool, especially something like Google Sheets, which I have been trying to learn how to be advanced on, where I'm using formulas that do advanced things, and it always shocks the people who are in the room when I finally figure out how to do something. It's almost like I've won the lottery. I will jump up, scream, make wild hand gestures, and they're like, what in the world? I'm like, well, I figured out this formula and it works now.
Right.
Really? Yes, it's that big a deal, because I failed probably 100 times before I figured it out. But every one of those failures taught me something so that eventually I could succeed. So that's what we want to talk about today.
Yes, and as a teacher, you want to, of course, you look for the success, and you are passionate about the success in your classroom. And it kind of sounds crazy when I say I'm very passionate about failure. And that goes against what most people think. But let me kind of put this in perspective. When we first started talking months ago about podcasts and let's get this started, I thought, I want to do one on failure, because this is something that I really enjoy talking about. And so this is by far the most the podcast I am looking forward to the most. And so I'm excited to be able to talk about this. But, as an educator, you always want to have the answers. And your students, when they ask you something and you don't have the answer, you feel like a failure. And there's many times that students have asked me something and I'm just honest with them. I don't know. Let's see. Why don't you go home and, especially if it's the end of the class or whatever, you go home and see what you can find out about it. I'm going to go home and see what I can find out about it. And we're going to talk about this tomorrow. It's important that your students know you don't have all the answers. We are always telling students they need to learn, and you learn from your experiences. And as teachers, we don't do that. And it's important that our students see us learn, that no, we don't have all the answers. I have stood, let me go back to this. Failure is often viewed as a weakness. It shows your students that you don't know how to do something and you're supposed to have the answers. It means you're wrong, and it opens you up to criticism. And, whether it's your student saying she doesn't know what she's talking about, or if it's a colleague or anything like that. But we need to change that. And so as part of that, failure means that you're learning. I watch my students mess something up really bad and then tell them to fix it. I have to let them go through this and let them struggle. Heaven forbid somebody struggle, but that's what we're supposed to do. The students should be struggling through things. Whenever they mess it up really bad and they're trying to fix it, at the very least, they know now what not to do. So they learn something in the process of trying to fix that really bad mess up that they've done. Teachers who are not comfortable using technology, they're very reluctant to try because they don't want their students to see them fail at this. And I teach technology all day long. Technology is my content. And when we start something new, I will tell them. And especially your first class of the day that you're trying this with, they're going to catch all of my mistakes, and I'll tell them, all right, guys, we're going to try something new. I have stood at the back of my room watching all of the computer screens and kind of held my breath many, many times throughout the years. And then when it all happens, I'm like, yes, okay, it worked. Let's move forward, But then there's other times I've stood there and, okay, well, hold on, let me see what I can do, And you want to have that best face forward all the time, but my students get to see me struggle, and they'll even offer suggestions. And one of my biggest and best example of this is, I've maintained websites for years. I know how to do all this, stuff with the websites, but I had never created a website from scratch by myself. And Jared has done this many times, and it's usually the websites that he's created that I help him to maintain. However, he's the creative mind, and he has all those little touches on it, and I just maintain it. But I knew all I had to do was go ask you for help and say, hey, well, how do I do this? And you would have helped me.
Correct.
But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to struggle. I wanted my students to see me struggle, and I wanted them to watch me go through all of these things and all of these steps. So when I started this, I wanted to create a class website where we housed all of our resources, things that we use every single day, and to make it meaningful for my class. And so I started doing this, and it took a whole lot of Googling, what is this called, to even be able to Google how to do it or how to fix it when I had messed it up really bad. And I put this on my screen, on the projector screen, every day in class. My students watched me, walk away. And, several times students say, Ms. Wall, you just want to punch the computer. Yes, I want to punch the computer. But I just walk away, and they saw me get frustrated with this. And I'm like, guys, I'm going to get this. Just me. I got to walk away from this. And so then, a lot of them, well, remember yesterday you clicked there? What if you click right there again and it gives you an option, So they became part of this process. And as the year, of course, we got this beautiful website with the help of my students. It was something they were involved in. that website is theirs. They made it theirs.
And you taught me several things that I stole from you to use on my class website. So she is also the creative one.
Well, so they became part of it, and they are very proud of their website, and they offer suggestions and things like that with the website. And so I struggled through this, and our website is absolutely beautiful for our class. Then it started with the new sites and the struggle.
When she says new sites, we always use the feature-rich classic Google sites,
right,
which most people don't like, but when you learn how to use it and you can work a little bit of HTML code and work around certain things, there's lots you can do to make your Google site look fantastic in classic
right.
Google sites. We read that the new Google sites, I don't know how long classic sites will be supported, so we had to take our own website, Wall Ed Tech, and move it to new Google sites just so we could keep up with the times. And I felt like those teachers who don't want to use technology in the classroom, no, I don't want to change. But I bit the bullet this week, right, and I did it. And I must say that what I thought would not look good, I think looks absolutely fantastic in new Google sites. We're
growing with Google. And Jared was doing the Wall Ed Tech website, and then I thought, let me start from scratch again. I didn't want to convert my classic site to the new site. I wanted to start the struggle all over again. And so I did, and at first I was very frustrated with it. And yes, while it makes adding things easier, I didn't feel that it let me personalize or customize as easy, if at all, with some of the things. But, Google changes all the time, and they're constantly upgrading. And I think the website for next year's school year looks really, really, really good. And I was able to keep all of the same content and structure, but it's a cleaner, more simplistic look. But I like that. So.
I like it too.
Yeah.
And so I think the bottom line of our content today for this podcast is that failure is only failure if you stay defeated. So as a teacher, if you're trying something, the only way you're going to fail at it is if you try it, it doesn't work, and then you put it down and walk away from it.
Right.
So using technology, you have to overcome those failures, use them as learning opportunities, and move forward. And eventually you will be successful. Students, the same thing. If you could do it right the first time out, you wouldn't need teachers. We wouldn't need schools. People would just go out doing what they do. The whole reason to be in school is that it's going to be a series of failure after failure after failure until you get things right, till you've mastered the standard. And so we need to encourage students by showing them we go through those processes, right, as well as teachers. Don't hide that from them. Be as open as you possibly can about your struggles so students know learning is a struggle.
Right. And, my students throughout the year will often refer to, remember when we were trying to do that on the Google site and things like that. So they remember that. It's crucial for students to see that we're people and we're continually learning as well. They need to see us fail and keep trying. We are modeling what we expect them to do. And failure does not mean that you're ignorant or weak. It means that you're growing.
Absolutely. Well, this was a fantastic podcast.
I love this, yes.
And if you would like to know more about Wall Ed Tech and the resources we have for teachers, you can visit our website at www.walledtech.com. Again, it has a facelift starting this week, and we would love to share our resources with you. Not only this podcast, we also have some 60 tech tips for educators in 60 days. These are basic training sessions on how to use Google tools. So maybe uploading a file to your Google Drive, translating documents.
Yeah, they're super short. So it only takes like a minute and a half of your time.
They're basic. We will move into a more advanced screencast that we will share later with some of our favorite tools. But for right now, we're just trying on our way back toward the beginning of school to give educators some tips they can use to not be afraid in that classroom to use technology.
Right.
So we're glad you joined us today. We look forward to bringing you another episode next week. But for now, this is Jared and Kari. And we want to say goodbye from Wall Ed Tech.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Wall Podcast. For more resources, you can visit walledtech.com or follow us on Twitter. Our username is @walledtech, or you can find us on Facebook by searching for WallEdTech. If you have questions, comments, or anything you want to hear us talk about, visit WallEdTech and send us an email, tweet, or message us on Facebook. We look forward to hearing from you.